And welcome back. So, we're going to see if Harold Andrade pulls this out, and we're going to talk map modes and inheritance. Go ahead and unpause that and let time roll on. I always play it at a 3. Feels too slow otherwise. Oh, look. Good for King Harold. He won. Godwin's lost. History rolls on exactly as it's supposed to. Alright, so we're going to let that roll while we talk about map modes. The basic map mode obviously is terrain. It shows you what the terrain is like. Your basic topographical map can be useful just to kind of know what you're looking at in terms of landmass. Ireland here, very, Irish. It's green, it's got some nice little forests and stuff, rolling hills, but overall pretty flat. No big mountain ranges or anything, no deserts. It's a pretty nice, gentle place to be, Ireland. This is the one where we spend most of our time, in the realms screen. This shows us what the realms are, what their names are, who controls what, if there's any disputes going on where somebody's occupying. All very good, very important, gives you a quick bird's eye view. Further out you pull, the more you get to see in terms of the larger names. So Byzantine Empire, if you go here, if you zoom in, then you'll start seeing the actual county names. So let's take care of our grandson here. So patience is a virtue, but sometimes it gets on my nerves. My grandson Taj never loses his temper, always waiting patiently for a chance to retaliate. We have good, I cannot abide recklessness. We can hold him up as an example, and his brother will not like him for it. That jerk. And he would gain some prestige. He would also gain intrigue. That's new. Thank Jesus. There's chance of no effect, but there's a 10% chance he gains the opposite trait, because apparently God has a sense of humor, and he likes laughing in the face of mere mortals. For the lulls. Bring out the fire in him. This is if you don't want them to get whatever trait it is. You can send him after the Roth trait. I'm not looking to make this kid a military genius, so I don't care if he has a good martial score. Instead, we're going to give him patient. Patient's a good trait. You get +1 intrigue, +1 diplomacy, +1 stewardship, +1 learning, plus defense. This is if he's a commander of an army. This is important. This is that what we were talking about, picking good commanders. He also gains 1 intrigue in addition to the ones that come with having patience. So we are definitely going with that, and he's going to like us a little bit better because he's happy with his upbringing. There we go. Got our +1 intrigue. Oh, now he's sick. Don't get sick, kid. Alright. Here's the other kid. He's ambitious. Now, before Taj, we wanted him ambitious. He's the oldest son. We want him to inherit and rule well and have a lot of good things. We don't want the guy who's going to be working for him to be ambitious. That's what leads to people trying to kill you. So, no, ambition will not serve you, kid. Sorry. You'll have to go back to being mediocre. It's alright. You'll do fine. So, time continues to roll on. We're going to hit the new year here. And Happy New Year. It is now 1077. No, 1071, in fact. I can read. Now this is a much better trait. My grandson, Donmal, makes sure everyone gets exactly the same amount of whatever sweets the cook gives the children. Just is a lovely trait. We don't want arbitrary. So, that would not be good. I'm not even going to, stop and talk about this one. Just is the right answer. Period. And end of story. Give the kid just. Unless you are trying to screw up the kid's life, you want him to be a bad king for whatever reason, or if you're really role-playing and the person is arbitrary themselves, it's just, don't do it. Don't give people arbitrary. It's a terrible, terrible trait. Alright. I'm gonna have to pause this because we're getting through a lot of events. And I have not yet started talking about the things that I wanted to talk about. But first, we'll talk about our bird, or our book, So a new bird has arrived at the Mew, and a new book on the art of poetry is waiting in the library. This is one of the way of life things. It's going to sort of guide what kind of person our king is. At 56 years old, he is a nearly dead king, so it almost doesn't matter, but we can make a decision. So, he has a chance to read the book, and he could either be inspired or think that it's bunk. Or he could take the bird out for a hunt and have disastrous falconry or fortunate falconry. Either of these is going to put him on a path if he gets the good event. If he gets the good event on falconry, he becomes a falconer, or an aspiring falconer. If he gets the inspiration, all sorts of things can happen. In this case, let's go with the book. He doesn't have a very good learning score, and I'd like to have him a little better. I'm going to go ahead and pause that. And we'll go back to talk about these guys. So again, like I said, you can zoom in, see Amiens, zoom out, see that it's France. Pretty simple. Realms is one of those screens that you pretty much stay in all the time. Different colors show you if you're inside of a normal du jour and it's not connected like we are here. We're all just a bunch of little guys. They're all green because Ireland is always green, but we're different shades of green to denote that we are separate. Whereas here, since they're now Norway, they're Norway's color. Before they were red because that was England's color. But you can see they're all the same color because they're not broken up by other non-Kingdom of Norway Norwegians. Diplomatic relations. These are the people who like, dislike, whatever you. King Harald Hardrade is our ally. He is blue. These guys, they're potential targets. They're yellow. These guys, neutral, they're gray. Zoom out, same thing. You see the big difference. The reason that it's just these bits and not all of Norway is because we're only allied with King Harald himself. When he dies, we'll either get the alliance with his son or we lose the alliance altogether. So, we're not allied with Norway, we're allied with King Harald Hardrade. It's an important distinction. Religions, same thing. Zoom out, see what your different religions are. Orthodox is always some version of this sort of pinkish red color. If it's a heresy, it'll be a... Let's see. Here we go. If it's a heresy, it'll be some kind of shade of that. Green is always Islam. Blue is Tengri, Jewish, Zoroastrian, I believe. Yellow for the pagan religions, or this sort of off shade of red. Slavic, you can see they all get their different colors. Germanic is kind of gray, Zoroastrian's green, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, all sorts of things. So again, zoom out, see it in the big picture. Zoom in, you can see where it's kind of being taken over. These guys are primarily Jewish, but they are being taken over by the Tengri. This, by the way, is like the normal state of being Jewish. In the world, you are always being taken over by something. Playing Jewish starts is really hard, and you pretty much lose immediately unless you're good at the game, which we have cleared up before. I am not. Alright, so that's this. The thing to note on this screen that's kind of interesting are these white patches. These white patches are holy sites for that religion. You can see, when we hover over it, it says this county contains Koln, a holy site of the Catholic faith. The more holy sites that your religion controls of its own holy site, the higher your moral authority. If you are a pagan religion and you are unreformed, it's really important to get those because you can't reform your religion until you control them. And you personally have to control them. It can't just be controlled by other rulers of your religion. So it's a pain, but it's worth it, because a reformed religion you can do a lot more with. We're not going to go deeply into it, because that's like advanced level that I don't mess with 90% of the time, so don't worry about it. Cultures. Same thing like religions. Shows you which culture people are. If you are taking over a county with a culture different than yours, they are not going to like you. This is where tolerance comes in. The other thing you can do, the longer that you hold that county, the more of your culture they will become. So these guys, you can see, are a combination of, I think they're Norse and, yeah, Norwegian and Irish, but they are mostly Norwegian. A little bit weird. So, yeah, well, lots of this is. So, we are Irish, and our larger cultural group is Celtic. These guys are Scottish, and their larger cultural group is Celtic. This does not mean that we are buddies, but it means that they don't mind us quite as much, because, hey, at least we're all Celts together. Next up is the economy screen. People with better economies are brighter green. People with worse economies are red. These guys have 0 tax income. That's because they're recently conquered. We have pretty good tax income. 59 gold per whatever. I think it's per year. These kind of median, whatever. The color makes it brighter. The color tells you whether or not it is a profitable county or not. This is good if you have to give away some of your counties because you have too many holdings and nobody likes you because you're holding on to too much stuff. Take a look at it this way to see what you own you can give away the most easily. It's a little bit faster than trying to be like, all right, is it this one? No. Is it this one? No. Is it this one? Don't bother. Just click on this screen. All right, I can give this one away. It's earning me the least. It's going to hurt the least to give it away. Right. So these next 3 are kind of important for different reasons. Remember when we were talking about we've got a de jure claim? These guys, now, when we scroll out, you can see it says Connachta, and they're the same color. This is not because we own them. It's because, by law, they are part of us. These guys are Ulster. These guys are Meath. These guys are Leinster. These guys are Mumu. So what you see is that these 2 are currently controlled by the same person, but they're actually of different de jure counties. That means the dude who controls them has a claim on this and a claim on this. Or he would if he was the duke. But since he's not, he doesn't really have a claim on anything. Getting the title gives you the claim. If you don't have the title and you want it, you need to get enough of the de jure to make yourself that guy. There's a bunch of like nitpicky things about this, but this is the basics. Get the title by getting all the counties. If you have the title, you can get the counties through the de jure war. Okay, very important. So this, when you have a whole kingdom, is useful for reparceling out like who your dukes are, because you don't want a duke who's like this, that, because now he's got 3 separate counties from 3 separate duchies, and he's always going to want the rest of them, and he's going to want the titles for all of them. So you want to keep your dukes centralized to their dukedoms and not all higgledy-piggledy all over the place. This is what I was talking about when I was talking about sometimes they get out of hand. They'll start conquering other stuff, and then they'll blob. You know, one guy will have all of this and this over here, and then he'll attack all of this, and then he's got half the kingdom, and I'm like, dude, I'm the king, back off. That was eloquently said, I know. Next step up is kingdoms. You can see what the de jure kingdoms is. just like with de jure duchies, if you are the king of or queen of a particular region, you get the de jure claims on it. Here's the thing about de jure claims. They act like any other claim. If you press one and you get it and you make peace, then you have to wait 10 years before you can do another war. It's almost better just to get a bunch of claims through fabrication and then press them all at once. If you're looking to pick off from the same person. If it's from a bunch of different people, it doesn't matter. Go ahead and use the de jure. But if one guy has a bunch of your things, use the fabrication to get it, because you can press multiple claims at once with that. Can't do it with you can't do multiple de jure claims at the same time. Next step up is the empires. Shockingly, the empire here is Britannia. This is Francia, Holy Roman Empire, yada yada yada. A lot of these are not historical. They merely exist in name only. So the Empire of Hispania, which is, as you can see, modern day Spain, is all of this stuff in these islands over here. Arabia is huge. Abyssinia, Mali. A lot of these guys never existed, but again, once you become the emperor of whatever empire this is, you can press de jure claims within these empires. If you become... And so the other thing about de jure is that it changes over time. Very, very, very slowly. If I become the king of Ireland, and I end up taking over all of Scotland, but I never make the Kingdom of Scotland, and it's just part of the Kingdom of Ireland, not its own separate entity, slowly, over time, the de jure will change. 100 years after I take over Galloway, for example, it will no longer be de jure of Scotland. It'll be the de jure of Ireland. That means people can't take it away from me through de jure claims. That's an important thing to know, but it's a very, very slow way of doing it. Next one, revolt risk. Everybody's pretty happy, hunky-dory here. See, these guys are a little bit darker. This is what you use to find your trouble spots. This is where you're most likely to have peasant rebellions. This is when you would want, if you see one that's like really dark or even getting into the red, that's when you go over here to your council, go to your marshal, and get him to suppress revolts. Click this, stick him in whatever county it is. He's going to lower their revolt risk. And hopefully they won't end up revolting on you. Hopefully. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Dynasties. Who controls what? Yingling. If we had looked at this before the war had ended, it would have said Godwin. Now it says Yingling? 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 I don't know. Because this is the dynasty this is the dynasty of Harold Tedrade. Form, Salian, Arpad, Piast. You become really, really familiar with these names after a while. And sometimes they change, you know. Sometimes the crown gets taken over, somebody else takes over, and this is no longer, you know, de Bourgogne, it's somebody else. When you zoom in, though, you'll notice it still says the names of the counties. So this is really just good for top level looking down, not, you know, getting into, oh, what's my count over here? What's his name? It's not going to tell you. This is strictly for overall rulers. Next one is character opinion, and this is based on me. So, I'm here, I like myself fine, so I'm green. Everyone around me, they like me a little bit less. Harold Hatrade, he likes me pretty well because, you know, we helped him out with that war. We super helped. Very big helps for that one. So, you know, he likes me pretty well. These guys over here, they don't like me because, well, largely because we are infidels and zealous. This guy is a pagan, and he is zealous, so he really dislikes people who aren't his religion. But you can see, he dislikes us because of it. Luckily, he's way over there. We don't care. Same thing. This is good for which one of my vassals hates me the most right now. I will do something with him. Direct vassals. This is a messy, messy screen, but it's the quickest way to see, rather than the de jure, the actual, like, breakup of the kingdom. So, let's pretend that I am actually the king of all of Ireland. What it would show me is that all of these guys are ruled by a different thing. If this was the same color as this, then I know that the same guy rules all three of those. Very simple, and it's a way of easily comparing between the de jure and the actual reigning titles so that you can start to reassign them if necessary. Like I said, the big thing about having counts and stuff is, or duchies, is that they get above themselves very, very quickly. Trade zones. This is useful if, and only if, you are playing a merchant republic. This is the trade zones of Pisa, this is the trade zones of Venice, this is the trade zones of Visby, yada yada yada. And somewhere on here is the Silk Road. I don't know where they are. But anyway, so that's useful if you are in the Merchant Republic business, which we're not. Same thing with this. This would be if we had our family as a merchant family, we would get to see where our trade zones are. Lastly, governments. I literally never click this button. It just tells you what the particular ruling way is. Tribal, Icta, which is feudal basically. Feudal, Merchant Republic, Theocracy. Not particularly exciting, not very useful. Don't bother with that one. Doesn't really matter. This is obviously your mini map. You can click around it, move around. It's very unexciting. Let's go back to Realms and get started again. Oh. So, the book was not inspiring. It was filled with bunk. We didn't like it. We can either say it wasn't for me and give him depressed, which is a terrible trait, or we can take our bird out hunting instead. So, we're going to do that. We're going to get that +1 diplomacy. There we go. Got a 5. Not particularly good. I guess I should take a second to talk about this too. These are our traits. These are the traits of the state, which is our traits plus our wife's trait and our counselor's traits. So we get half of her traits as part of ours, and we get our counselor's trait. So he's a 16, so we get a +16 to that for the state, which is basically us, l'état c'est moi, and all of that. So not much is happening. Time is passing. We're getting more money. Always very important. These guys are still here. They got lost and can't figure out how to get home. Oh, here we go. So you can see they've got a little skull head here. That skull head is that supply unit. So even though they have a supply limit that's really high, they are out. They're too far away. So there are a couple of things that actually affect supply limits. One is the number of guys that this county can handle, but these guys aren't at war with us, so they can't just, take stuff. And they have now been out of supplies for almost a year. So they're slowly losing people, just ticking down day by day. Got 28 guys left. Gonna keep on going down. The attrition in the province is affected by its topography. So since it's hills, he's not doing so well. I feel really bad, but I am kind of laughing at him because, dude, go home. Just go home. You don't have to be here anymore. The war's over. Go home. You can see there is a bonus for the leader of it being pretty good at it. Oh, our counselor died. Was that the genius guy? Oh, I never even got a chance to marry you off and make little genius babies out of you. That's too bad. He died too young. That is true. Ryan made me promise I would bury him properly, and I keep my promises. I walked beside his coffin to Ryan's last rest, and the wailing of mourners was almost more than I could bear. He died too young. We could either be an evil bastard, be like, you know, one less mouth to feed, would get us some intrigue and diplomacy, but people wouldn't like us very much. Or rest in peace, +2 diplomacy. We're gonna do that. Because, you know, I feel bad that my genius guy died and I didn't get a chance to marry him off to anyone. Alright, so I've hit the end of this time. We're going to go ahead and stop here. I think 2 videos of pure explanation with nothing else going on is pretty good. Next time, we'll assign ourselves a new chancellor. We'll talk about how to do that. And, you know, whatever else comes up. Maybe we'll even go out and fight somebody. That sounds like fun. See you next time.